Greetings, acolytes, and welcome to the archives. I see your tenacity and desire for knowledge about the history of the galaxy and its origins has increased. Very well, my friends. Today, we are going to be taking a trip more than 25,000 years back in the history of the galaxy, to the age of the Infinite Empire, and the very small beginnings of the Jedi Order on Typhon, known then as the Jedi Order. Today, we are going to be exploring one of these Rakata in particular, the most powerful of the most powerful, a being of such force strength he was considered a very forced entity if he had not been condemned to mortality. They came, marching, believing themselves equal to the army of ancients that chained me, but I am not of their time. Their ancestors called me Soa, wrath and power, and knew fear, for I ruled 1,000 worlds, and Korriban was my crown, Korriban my cradle and my testing ground. I have waited 20,000 years, but I will wait no longer. Soa, also known as the Infernal One, was an exceptionally powerful force-sensitive male Rakata who had been imprisoned in the Eternity Vault on Belservice for nearly 20,000 years prior to the Galactic War, during a bombing run by the Imperial military. The section of the prison in which Soa was imprisoned more than 20 millennia before was discovered, and Soa was freed. As a massive male Rakata, Soa rose to power and prominence as a warlord of the Infinite Empire, the ancient empire that ran on the Rakata that was downed by a plague that rid them of their force sensitivity of its species well before the Empire's collapse. Later legends claim that Soa, leading an army that included his creations, the annihilation droid XRR-3 and the alchemical monster Garge, conquered 1,000 planets himself single-handedly during his time, and earned the title Infernal One. Among these worlds was the planet Korriban, whose native Sith purebloods he ruled. Sometime after the Sith King Adas's uprising against the Rakata, which resulted in Adas's death, but the death of so many Rakata that they were permanently driven off the world until the arrival of Soa. Soa and his infernal council of traitorous Sith were imprisoned within their army, and the Eternity Vault on the planet Belservice. Legends say that it took an army of Rakata alone and other ancient species to stop him, and entomb him within the Eternity Vault. Millennia later, as the conflict began to spark once again between the resurgent and reconstituted Sith Empire led by Emperor Vitiate, and the Galactic Republic led by the Jedi Masters and Jedi High Council members such as Venzalo during the Galactic War, they unintentionally during an Imperial bombing run caused Soa to reawaken, breaking the portion of the prison that he was encased in and unleashing this horrible dark side entity on the galaxy. Both sides, somewhat aware of what they had awakened, as his presence could be felt by all force users in the galaxy, sent a strike team to eliminate Soa before he regained enough power to become a threat to the entire galaxy, and before he learned himself in ancient lore, techniques, and force abilities such as Force Lightning and Sith Seeker that could potentially allow him to be a threat to the entirety of both the Republic and the Sith Empire. It is unknown which team accomplished their task. The strike team faced Soa's creations and allies that he had created using alchemical mastery, and eventually made their way to his imprisonment chamber. When they arrived, he finally had figured out a way to break free from his restraints and chains and fought them, taunting them and claiming he could not be defeated. The strike team, however, proved him wrong, and finally brought an end to the Infernal One after a full 20,000 years of existence. This was a being truly beyond any other Force user besides possibly Emperor Vitiate of his time. This was a being who was nearly an entity-level strength, while we know that Tenebrae and Darth Nihilus were both entities in their own right. Soa was immortal, and was capable of completely decimating armies of followers, the Force-sensitive Rakata, who are widely considered to be the most abusive and powerful species naturally in the dark side of the Force, and the Force in general in all of history, on par with that of the Sith purebloods being their only equals. It said it took an army of upwards of 1,000 Rakata in order to imprison this one being, not just due to his monstrous physical capabilities, but primarily due to his powerful usage of the Force. Soa utilized a suite of combat abilities to both protect in defensive techniques and offend his opponents, using various effective techniques that the Sith would later claim as their own. Soa was able to unleash powerful blasts of lightning, and was able to project various telekinetic waves that could throw Jedi off guard, and arguably could stand up to the deity Cell Makor, although this is a highly contested debate, as personally I believe Cell Makor is far too formidable for even the Infernal One to deal with. Soa had an ego to match his great size and power, having been born as a massive male Rakata standing a few meters in height, Soa's towering physical build was enough to dwarf even the largest species in the Star Wars galaxy, being, according to my estimations, roughly a bit taller than the average male rancor, one of the largest and most formidable and physically imposing species in all of history. Soa was the last known living Rakata, living during the third millennium of the entire galaxy, living 3 millennia before the events of the Battle of Yavin, and almost a few hundred years before the final death of Emperor Vitiate. He was arrogant and shown to be extremely proud of his ancient accomplishments to the point he would brag about them outright, believing he was omnipotent and unable to be defeated. Something would eventually be proven incorrect. When he faced a strike team sent to stop him, he refused to even concede the possibility of defeat and instead proceeded to insult and belittle his enemies, despite the fact Soa was exceptionally powerful. The strike team eventually overcame him using tactical powers and the Force itself, proving that Soa, even in his all might that might have outmatched all beings in his day, could not match up to the beings he had recently encountered. Of course, we have to take into account that Soa had just awoken and did not have any time to learning himself in any new Force practices, such as ancient alchemy, Force lightning, Force choke, and various other applications of the Force, and only had roughly 2 seconds, if that, of time to spend before the strike team intercepted him, meaning he was not at all able to tutor himself in the ways of the dark side. Soa was a formidable and powerful user of the Force, and utilized a suite of combat abilities to both protect himself from assaults and to attack opponents simultaneously. These abilities included ball lightning, a form of force lightning which he could condense into an enormous ball of energy that could unleash a static shock around various beings, hurling opponents into mind traps, and extensive telekinetic waves and abilities that allowed him to send opponents on lengthy airborne paths and to destabilize and manipulate large platforms of metal. He could also summon an extremely powerful force barrier that was only overcome by dropping heavy pillars onto his frame. He also appeared to have been gifted in the art of Sith alchemy. Alchemy and sorcery were some of the most native Sith abilities and traits that the ancient Sith purebloods practiced in, with alchemy being able to enchant artifacts, talismans, and tomes, even imbuing various alchemical designs with dark side alchemy, and also being able to master and alchemically generate and biologically create various dark side abominations, such as a Torrentatek, claiming to have created an army of slaves in the monster Gujar. Additionally, he was a skilled manipulator of various Rakatan Force-based technologies, having developed the Annihilation Droid XRR-3, one of the most formidable droids of his day. Well, my friends, what did you think of this breakdown on this abnormal Force entity, this being of unlimited power? Soa was perhaps third in the entirety of the Old Republic in terms of power, if not in the top 5 at least, surpassed only by beings such as Darth Nihilus, Emperor Valkorion, Darth Revan, and the Hero of Tython, and few others. If you would like to leave your suggestions in the comments down below. Be sure to leave your suggestions in the comments below of various entities that you would like to see covered on this channel. We're currently trying to muster all the various unique and ethereal entities that we can into videos, and we truly appreciate your support. So if you could get me to 100 subscribers before the end of the year, it would mean the world to me. Farewell, my friends, and remember, kneel before the dragon of Zakul.